The Cleveland Cavaliers are the most overlooked team in the NBA. For whatever reason, no one is talking about them. Since they've got James Harden, they are 17-6, which would be about a 73% win rate. That would be the best team in the Eastern Conference and the third best team overall in the league, right behind the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. This team has really turned it around, and we are not talking about it enough. When you look at the Eastern Conference this year, the Cleveland Cavaliers should absolutely be discussed as one of the favorites in that conference. And for whatever reason, I feel like they're an afterthought. People are talking a ton about the Celtics since Jason Tatum has gotten back. They're talking a ton about the New York Knicks. Obviously, Cade Cunningham's been out for the Detroit Pistons, so that team's, they've still played pretty well. But you don't really know what's going on there. You've heard conversations about how good the Charlotte Hornets have been playing, but I don't hear a lot of talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. This team has incredible depth since adding Keon, Ellis, and Dennis Schroeder, two guys that are both averaging 8 points a game, which is pretty solid coming off the bench when you're talking about being the backup guards to Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. A big reason they brought in James Harden was because he is durable and going to play in every single game, and that has been hugely successful and an improvement on what Darius Garland was providing for this Cleveland Cavaliers roster. And I think they're absolutely alive. When that trade first took place, I did reactions to James Harden's first few games with the Cavs, and you could see how electric the offense was. Now, obviously, tonight they beat the Golden State Warriors in Golden State, and anytime you're playing, just an absolute dangerous offensive weapon like Draymond Green, a guy who tonight gave you 8 points on 3 of 11 shooting, you have to be scared. Obviously, I'm joking about that. I enjoy clowning Draymond Green a little bit. But this Cavs team came out and handled its business tonight. But when this team is at its best, and James Harden gave you 19 points tonight, Donovan Mitchell gave you 25, Evan Mobley 12, Jared Allen 16, and you're bringing back Max Strus, who gave you 24 points and has really been finding his rhythm since returning to play. This team is going to be absolutely dangerous come playoff time, and obviously we're only a week or two away from the playoffs. I think the Cavs have 5 games. I might be off by game. But the Cavs have only a few games left in the season. They're 1 game out of the 3 seed, and it's like they're an afterthought. They're 4th in the NBA in points per game, 12th in rebounding. They're middle of the pack defensively, but they're 4th in effective field goal percentage. So they're really, really good on the offensive end of the court, and defensively, obviously, we know that Evan Mobley's been out for a lot of the year. Max Strus has been out for a lot of the year. You're going to start to get that cohesion, and these guys get more used to playing with each other, which adds, communication improves. Understanding where the other guys on the court are going to be at. The way the coach is able to call the game, just understanding how the roster plays together, changes as you develop this chemistry, and that's something that this Cavs team is able to do now that these guys are starting to play together as we get into this stretch run of the season. I am wondering, though, if it's beneficial for the Cavs to stay in that 4 seed. Normally you want to move up in the standings as much as possible, but when you look at how the playoffs is falling, if the season ended today and the Cavs stayed that 4 seed, in round 1, they'd get the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Hawks are playing good basketball. That wouldn't be a super easy series, but you'd absolutely pick the Cavs as the favorite in that series. Round 2 is where it's more important. If you move to that 3 seed in round 2, you're probably drawing the Boston Celtics, almost certainly. If you stay the 4 seed, in round 2, you're facing the winner of Pistons and whoever gets the 8 seed out of that play-in tournament. Could be the Hornets, could be the Heat. Who else is in that running? The Raptors, if the Sixers fall, and the Magic. Any of those teams could fall to that 8 spot. So the interesting part with Cade Cunningham being out, and if he's going to be out for the first round of the playoffs, you have to feel like some of those teams are live to upset the Pistons, even though I think the Pistons have been playing awesome basketball. Jalen Duren's been a dog. But it will be really interesting to see if the Cavs drew in round 2 an 8 seed or a Pistons team without Cade Cunningham. You would feel really good about your chances as the Cleveland Cavalier organization, the fan base, the players. You would feel really confident. And you know that you're going to have some increased health luck, you would hope, this year from what Darius Garland's been it feels like injured in the playoffs every single year. So now you're adding James Harden, a guy who, stays on the court. Now, James Harden playoff struggles have been overstated. It's something I've talked about before. He was one game away from beating that Warriors team with Kevin Durant. Chris Paul got injured, and the Rockets ended up losing. I think it was the final 2 games of the series, if I'm correct. At least the final game. But think about how impressive that is. LeBron James, who might have been his best season in 2018, I believe got swept by that Warriors team. And James Harden had them in Game 7 with Chris Paul. So, and, he obviously made the finals with the Thunder early on in his career. He made the Western Conference Finals other time. He has had some, let's say, games where he, kind of stopped taking shots, just weirdly started playing a different brand of basketball than what we're used to from James Harden. And I think that that's where it's a good thing that he's playing alongside Donovan Mitchell and having that depth where he can really be a distributor of the basketball. Will still be able to come alive when the playoffs come around. And then in the games that he is hot on the offensive end of the court, he can provide so much boost. But the way that, we know the way that Jared Allen's played since Harden's been there has been incredible. Evan Mobley's come back. He's had some monster games. He's kind of a little up and down on offense. You'd like to see a little more consistency there, but, still a young guy. Max Strus, Thomas Bryant, Dennis Schroeder, Sam Merrill, Keon Ellis. This team has depth, and that's what's really won in the NBA over the last few years. You look at the Thunder, really good depth the last season, and this season obviously as well. The Spurs have good depth. The Celtics, that team that won a championship a few years ago, really good depth. A lot of times in the NBA playoffs, being able to throw fresh bodies, especially for defensive purposes, is really, really important because your stars are playing long series, especially, if you end up in the other side of the bracket as the 3 seed and you played the Celtics in round 2 and say you won that series, then you play the Knicks in round 3, say you won that series, but both of those you'd imagine will go 6 or 7 games, but then you get to the NBA finals and you're playing whether it's the Thunder or the Spurs or whatever. It does take a lot out of your star players, so having a little bit of depth, guys who can come in and buy a few minutes for your starters to get some rest, is hugely valuable if you're going to make a long playoff run. And that's what the Cavs have this year. And with Harden and Mitchell both being able to handle the ball down the stretch in big moments, that'll have a lot of value in allowing those guys to get rest in these long series, in these grind out series. And especially on the half, you're talking about half court offense. It's sometimes hard to generate good looks, but when you have 2 guys that are able to get looks for themselves and other players, man, that just has so much value. And then, you bring in Schroeder off the bench as another ball handler. This Cavs team is going to be dangerous, and I just don't think it's being talked about enough. So make sure you stay tuned to what we're seeing the rest of the season and where they finish in the standings, because if they finish as that 4 seed, I'm going to feel really good about them at least getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then once you're there, who knows what happens. We've seen so many things in the past, guys getting hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals, or a team makes a crazy run to make it to that round. And you can easily find yourself in the NBA Finals if you end up on that side of the bracket and you're playing the Hawks and then the 8 seed in the second round. So all in all, good win by the Cavs tonight in Golden State. The Warriors aren't an awesome basketball team, but we're talking about they're 7-3 over the last 10 games. They've been 17-6 with James Harden on the court, and I think they're playing good basketball heading into the playoff run. They have some easy games coming up, so hopefully you finish the season strong and feel really good about your chances in round 1 if it is against the Atlanta Hawks. That's all we got for you. Make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel if you love NBA content, and let me know, do you think this Cavs team has a chance to make the NBA Finals? Because not a lot of people are talking about it, but we'll see what happens. Appreciate y'all watching. Cyborg out.